All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Samurai Brothers podcast. And we're back with a new episode, Matthew. Once again, we had to take a little bit of a break because of a lot of things that were happening. But
one big thing in particular.
What?
One big thing in particular.
Yeah. But we're now on episode 21 of our podcast that we've been able to do. And so we've got quite a few things to talk about today, Matthew. Obviously, the first thing was that we all took a nice family vacation. So that was nice and fun to do. And, not haven't been able to do that in a while, considering the events, and the circumstances of the past couple of years. So it was nice to get out of California for a while. So that's the first thing we'll get into today. And then we got into, Matthew, I'm sure you were watching it live, UFC 277. Is that correct?
Yep.
So
it did not disappoint.
Yes, we'll be talking about that. And then while we were on vacation, we followed up on the Sumo Nagoya 2022 basho, which is the basho tournament that takes place in July. And then, so how did that go? Who ended up winning the basho? And I got to do a little bit of a personal experience with some sumo, so we'll get into that. And then lastly, Matthew, Onepiece, it's back. It was on a 4-week break, but it's back, and because of we were busy traveling and stuff, we've actually have 2 chapters to cover with that today. So I think actually we got quite an action-packed episode for today, don't you think?
So yeah, we certainly do.
So let's get right into it then, Matthew. So we took our nice family trip to Hawaii, and so we went to Hawaii Island. So not the Oahu, which is where the capital of Honolulu is, and that is the most populous of the Hawaiian Islands. But we decided to go a little bit of the nature route, if you remember that. So it was an interesting trip. Obviously, day one, we got into Kona and got to see a little bit of the mountains and stuff, the dormant volcanoes, and all the lava rocks, pretty much from the airport to the hotel.
Yeah, right? that entire island has lava rocks.
Yeah, it's basically lava rock. And then,
well, if you think about it, the island is one big volcano.
Of course. That's the thing. Now, obviously, what we saw when we were driving there, I think that's the dormant, one of the dormant volcanoes, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. We were on the side with the dormant volcano.
Right. So it was all good, and I think just kind of breaking it down. Obviously, one of the things that we did the most, well, at least me, Mom, and Dad, and maybe Diane, and drinking a lot of coffee, and it being Kona coffee and stuff. So that was that.
Glad you all enjoyed it. I'm not a coffee drinker.
Yeah, but there was obviously a lot of things like Matthew. We went to the macadamia nut factory and
twice.
Twice, and you got to do the taste testing. So when you were doing the taste testing, and how many flavors did the lady let you all test out?
I think like 10.
Was it 10? I thought there was more when I was looking at it. Obviously, I didn't participate in that because of
there might have been 20.
Yeah, I remember that there was quite a few lined up. But what would you say was your favorite in that?
The birthday cake.
Birthday cake.
Yeah.
I missed that one. Because I remember I heard like wasabi And I heard like soy sauce in there.
Wasabi, soy sauce, sriracha.
Oh yes, sriracha. That probably would have been fun.
Plain.
Yeah, there were quite a few. Obviously, I think there was some like a roasted. I don't know if there was a cocoa covered one or not.
There was a coffee covered one. There might have also been a cocoa covered.
Right.
Of note, I am slowly but surely posting these onto my YouTube channel, and they're apparently very popular on my YouTube channel. So they'll just, more to come. It has been suggested that I do one exclusively for the coffee plantation visit.
So yeah. So oh yes, and that's the other thing we did was we visited the coffee plantation. And one of the things I found amazing was the actual coffee process, because I'd never been aware of what all specifically goes into, cultivating coffee. And
I didn't know either, and because, like I said, I'm not a coffee drinker, it's just something I was just like, I don't care. But yeah, it's a labor-intensive process, and
it's very labor-intensive.
Well, yeah, and you think about how little coffee is produced by all the plants and stuff like that. It's just like, where in the world are places like Starbucks and Folgers and these mega corporations getting all their coffee from?
Well, but like the guide had been mentioning, Hawaii, you only have so much real estate, and you've only got so much space to.
And the macadamia. And another thing is the macadamia and coffee industries are competing with each other.
Right.
Also note, the guy acknowledged that coffee did not come from Hawaii, and neither did macadamia nuts. Macadamia nuts are originally from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And
they grow very well in Hawaii and some of the other, Pacific islands.
Yeah, which is why, you have those very specific brands of coffee, or in the case of the macadamia nuts.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, but I'm very sure that once you get your movie together, and I'm very sure that it'll be very interesting to see how the whole process works. But so they gotta pick all the and just for anyone who doesn't know, coffee comes from a specific type of cherry. Not the normal cherries that you would see in the grocery stores, but it's a different kind of cherry. But the one thing that they make sure to do is to use that cherry for like extract and stuff like that. So for other kinds of,
it's one of those things where the main product is
the coffee bean.
Yeah. The main product is the coffee beans, but they find ways to make money off of everything else.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like when we went to the nut factory, they in the video we watched, they talked about how the nuts, everything about the nuts, the nutshell, the various the quality of nuts, it's like all of that is used to some degree.
Right.
It's one of those things where you make as much money as possible.
Well,
it's like you're squeezing every cent out of the product.
Yeah, because in the case of farming in an area like that, and especially in Hawaii, your margin of error is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that was a very interesting experience, and the one thing about the coffee farm that we went to was that it was a free tour, and nothing against the other farms that were charging money for the tours, but this particular farm also was providing free samples of all the various flavors of the coffee, and getting to drink some of those was pretty nice, and it actually made me want to buy the coffee that was there. And
I
Hawaiian
contributed. I
coffee.
bought some ice cream.
Well, and the Hawaiian coffee, especially Kona, it's not your cheap Folgers or U-Ban or brands and stuff like that. This is like quality coffee, and then on top of that, it's not mass produced, so it's gonna be a little bit on the expensive side, but I definitely think that it was money, well spent.
Yeah, it's like the guy said that Kona coffee, just all brands all across the specific Hawaiian Kona coffee, is like what, below 1% of the global coffee market. Mm-hmm. That's a very specialized coffee there.
Right.
Well, so it's like you're paying for the price of good coffee.
And I don't know if you had heard him, but he was talking to Mom and Dad also about how much their gross product and how much they end up shipping out. And I think he said it was something like 1 million pounds a year, which 1 million pounds, that might seem like a lot, but when you
have Starbucks, Starbucks does like 1 million pounds a day or something like that.
Well, it's the farm that would sell to either Starbucks or U-Ban or Folgers. These places. When you go to the South American countries, because land is a bit more accessible there. You're not having to fly it, or you might be flying it, but you don't have to put it on a boat in order to get it to its destination. And so that's where these big coffee plantations out in somewhere like Brazil or maybe Colombia, right? He was saying that they had an executive from one of those plantations, and where he's saying that this particular farm is exporting 1 million pounds a year. You got these people out in Brazil or Colombia, they're exporting 1 million pounds a week. So I think that's why they can say that they can mass produce it, and I think that's how they can keep the prices of the coffee low when it's hitting grocery shelves.
Well, and that's another thing to keep in mind is that they said that there's the coffee belt. It's basically like around the equator. I don't think people realize Hawaii is the furthest American territory south. It's like you're not just, when you fly out to Hawaii, you're not just flying west. You're flying southwest, which is funny because we're on Southwest Airlines, which I personally had a fun experience with those flights. I don't know about you, but I personally had a nice experience.
Oh, yeah, because I could hear you talking to people. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were always able to sit next to, or near me, not next to me.
Yeah, I was within ear.
Well, you know me, I'm a social butterfly. I talk to anyone who's wanting to talk to me.
Yeah.
I'm an extrovert.
So, yeah, that's so I think we had a good experience regarding that. Also getting to go and the other thing is they weren't just growing coffee on there. I mean, they were growing pepper. They were growing I think bananas, and they had avocado.
It was a diversified plantation, so they weren't. Coffee may be their main thing, but they've diversified.
Right. So you've got that,
and I think it's in such a way that all the plants have different growing seasons, so they're constantly making money off of the plants.
And then where else? Well, obviously we went to the macadamia factories. We also went to the waterfalls.
I forget what the Hawaiian name for the temple is, but we went to that temple.
Mm-hmm.
Where King Kamehameha.
Yeah. That
sounds like.
Gosh, I forget what it was called.
That's such a cool name, Kamehameha, King Kamehameha the First.
Well, that's what I was saying.
The Hawaiian unifier.
I want to know, did Akira Toriyama get the Kamehameha from Dragon Ball? Did he get that from King Kamehameha, of Hawaii?
Did you find any info on that?
No, I haven't been able to do any research on that, but I would be really interested to see, was Dragon Ball at least the name of that move, because you got Goku using it. I think Krillin has been able to use it. A lot of characters in Dragon Ball.
The Saiyans.
Right, the Saiyans, they use the Kamehameha. And of course, sometimes you'll have the villains using it too and stuff because they learn it. But yeah, did King Kamehameha, as they were calling it, because they really say it really fast. But so you got Kamehameha, which is the Japanese, you got to say it like that in Japanese because it's pronounced that way. So yeah, I'm really wondering, did King Kamehameha, was he the inspiration for that move, at least the name wise? But yeah, this guy really he unified Hawaii.
He was I don't know if you could call him the Oda Nobunaga of Hawaii.
Except he succeeded where Nobunaga failed.
Well, Nobunaga's problem is he got assassinated when he was, 2/3 through Japanese unification?
Yeah.
And then Hideyoshi technically finished it, and then Ieyasu...
Right. Ieyasu, I think, I forget what the terminology was, but he was like, he cultivated it.
I think the way that they put it is, I think they said Nobunaga gathered it, Hideyoshi ground it, and Ieyasu ate it.
Right. Something to that effect. But yeah. So there's that.
And of course, there's speculation that Nobunaga might have wanted to invade Korea, and that's what inspired Hideyoshi.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Because I'm very sure that the leadership of it would have gone a lot differently under Nobunaga than it would Hideyoshi.
Yeah, let's face it. Hideyoshi was competent enough to unify Hawaii, but in some ways, he was always a bumbling buffoon.
Yep.
And it reflected when he tried to invade Korea. Now, on the other hand, you have Nobunaga, who was earned the nickname the ogre or the devil, depending on the translation of Oni.
Mm-hmm.
And he was known for his brutality. So
yeah, very brutal.
Yeah, but we're squirreling. Kamehameha the First. So we saw his temple, where that's now a state park.
Right.
And it was the last temple built for Hawaiian purposes. And then he goes on this campaign of conquering the rest of the Hawaiian islands, starting with Maui, and then just going up through the island chain and becoming Kamehameha the Great. And starting this dynasty that ended when...
Right, the dynasty, I think they had something like...
10?
Was it 10?
I'd like to say 10.
Or 10 Kamehamehas?
And it ended with the first queen.
Right.
In a coup that... yeah, anyways.
Well, that's interesting. Well, yeah, so a little bit of Hawaiian history there. We did snorkeling. It was my first time doing it, so I didn't really have a good experience because
I forgot.
Did you beat down by the waves so much?
Yeah, no. Did you? Was your problem that you were having problems gripping because of your feet, or did you get beat by the waves, or did you inhale water? What was it? Because I could tell you started to panic like the moment you got into the water.
It was the water. Just I'm losing control of where I'm either standing or where I'm trying to grip. Then on top of that, when I was trying to grip on the rocks, I'm either grabbing sharp edges or I'm ending up grabbing, because there were urchins on there too. I could see urchins.
I could see urchins too, but I could see where they were in the crevices, so I was able to avoid grabbing any sea urchins.
Right. Well, yeah. So the rocks were slippery.
Brett and our sister were in there the longest.
Right. So the rocks were a bit slippery.
Our cousin Brett, who is doing juniors hockey in the fall.
Mm-hmm. So
in Georgia.
So, yeah, it was hard to kind of grip stuff. Plus, you had these drops and stuff, so I'm not really sure where I'm going to be stepping and all. Obviously, the rocks were uneven and stuff.
And we had that one nut saying, "You're damaging the coral when you're standing on." It's like, it's a rock. I can tell a rock when I see one.
Right. Yeah, there's a bit of those environmental nuts out there, so.
It's like we wouldn't have been allowed on the beach, let alone into the water if there was worries about. It's like there's a very distinct difference between coral and a rock. I can tell a rock when I see one. I wouldn't have been able to stand on coral, even with my water shoes on.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, and I did get action cam footage of that, which I'll also be posting. I tested out a new action cam, which is supposed to be better quality than the Vivitar. The Vivitar was which funny enough, the Vivitar camera, my first review of it is still my top trending video on my channel right now. I've had some very interesting times of top trending videos on my channel, but yeah, I guess because it's a cheap GoPro, it's still trending. I got it at Best Buy.
So I know we did
Nope. Big Lots.
So we did the waterfalls also.
That was fun.
We had the luau. We got to watch the luau and stuff. A lot of the dancing, singing,
which included hakas.
Yeah, they had some hakas.
We are fans of the haka. We are fans of the war dance.
So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. But I think overall,
we got to see the volcano, the actual magma.
Yeah, we got to see magma. So I think we'll be trying to. I will probably upload, the footage I got from that, minimal as it was. I will put that up on this channel. I'll put that together for everyone to see that too. So yeah, it was really fun stuff. So definitely, I've not really seen magma in person before. So definitely that was a good experience for that. But Matthew, I think overall, our number one. A lot of people's number one picks for their favorite event, at least on our vacation for Hawaii, definitely the stargazing.
Yeah, it's the universe as it's meant to be seen.
It's
like you got to see the Milky Way, all the constellations, just galaxies, planets. It's like you got to see it all.
Right. Just amazingly, you see Saturn with the naked eye. You see, the Big Dipper is really big, Orion's belt. And then, you got to see shooting stars, but the Milky Way, I never seen the Milky Way like that before. So, again, I would recommend to anyone, when you're in Hawaii, you definitely need to go to the top of the mountain and you need to go stargazing because it's just an amazing thing. The fact that we're just a small speck in this big universe. And then all those stars are light years away and stuff too. So all the light you're seeing from them is, hundreds of thousands of even tens of thousands of years old. So anyway, yeah. So that was our Hawaii trip. So it was good family time, and definitely I would, if I'm gonna go to Hawaii again, I would definitely want to go to the Big Island again to enjoy that. So yeah. Anything else on that, Matthew?
Actually, if I were to go back to Hawaii, I think I'd want to check out Honolulu.
Definitely. Yeah.
Or yeah, I was like, Oahu. I want to see. Well, because my thing is, I want to see Pearl Harbor.
Right.
I want to see the hollowed waters of Pearl Harbor. Which, to be fair, on our flight back, we had the layover in Honolulu, and I got to see Pearl Harbor from the sky. But we were only there for an hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, that was good. It was good. Definitely, I enjoyed it. All right, Matthew. Let's get into our next subject for today. UFC 277. So I'm gonna go ahead and screen share this and to see what we got going on. So I'm hoping that you can see this, and I hope I'm actually showing right.
And you had to go to Sheerdog because for some reason the
UFC website is not functioning. So anyway, Matthew, UFC 277. This was Nunes versus Pena, and I guess it was Nunes versus Pena 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, because in December they faced off, and it was very atypical Amanda Nunes. It looked more like pre-goat Amanda Nunes, as in it looked like I don't know what it was. I don't know if she just had a bad weight cut or if she just for some reason adrenaline dumped, or if she punched herself out in the first round. But yeah, it was she didn't look at the top of her game to begin with in that first fight. And then you see Juliana go in there and pull off the upset, and I was like, oh my gosh! And then this fight, it was returned dominant.
The favor was returned.
Yeah, and
right.
I agree with Juliana. I do not. I like Dana White blew it out of proportion. Amanda did not remove a chunk of her head. She gave her 2 large gashes, but she did not remove a chunk of her head.
Oh.
There's a difference between a chunk and a gash.
All right, so let's get into the fights that happened. So obviously, a lot of stuff going on here. Nunes stuns and drops Pena in the second round.
Several times. I'm surprised. There's times where I'm honestly surprised the ref didn't stop it, but.
So let's see here. I think the breakdown. I mean, they got a lot of breakdowns here, but I think we're just going off the. I think if I'm looking at this.
That's the weigh-ins.
Oh, this was the weigh-ins?
That's the weigh-in. Well, let's see.
Is this the order of the matches as they occur?
Yeah, that's the order of the matches. Looks like a prelim guy missed.
So you had, I'm not sure how this is pronounced, Orion Kos?
I don't know. It was on the prelims. I didn't even see it.
So yeah, missed weight by a lot. So obviously that's
and we've talked about our criticism of people missing weight because we never missed weight.
Right. So I think the official result was that this Orion guy who missed weight ended up winning a unanimous decision, but I guess he doesn't get that big of a purse since he missed the weight. Am I correct?
Yeah, because he got fined. His purse went to and part of his purse went to his
opponent.
Yeah, his opponent. That's the way in which they punish you. Is that guess what? Money goes bye-bye.
Yeah.
Part of
this next fight, I think this is light heavyweight, correct?
That is correct.
So Nicolay Morano Negumero versus Ihor Poitiera. And so let me see here. In the end, what ended
Again,
up happening?
I didn't watch the prelim.
It was Nicole Negu Marino.
TKO round 2.
TKO round 2. Then you had Jocelyn Edwards versus Ji-Yeon Kim. So this was another missed weight. So that's 2 on a what is you got a fight night. Oh, pay-per-view. 2 on a pay-per-view. Prelims obviously.
That's atypical. Usually fighters are good at hitting their
on a pay-per-view.
Well, just on average, nowadays fighters have kind of figured out the weight cutting.
Right.
So the fact that there was 2 on a pay-per-view is unusual.
So again, Jocelyn Edwards defeated Ji-Yeon Kim by split decision. And again, the person who missed weight ended up being the winner, but loses out on the money. So then you have Adam Fugit and Michael Morales. So names that I'm not too familiar with.
They're up-and-comers.
Let me see here. It looks like Michael Morales defeated Adam Fugit in round 3 via TKO punches. Rafa Garcia versus Drakkar Klose.
Drakkar Klose is one of those guys that I honestly think has the potential, but he's just not able to break out of that just below contender position. He's not quite gatekeeper, but he's not a contender yet.
So
he's not like
Shurtog is saying he's the initial aggressor at the start of round 3. Anyway, but it looks like he did win.
She was able to get this one.
Okay, so Hamdi Abdelawaba.
He is I think he's Egyptian, is what the thing said.
Versus Dontail Mays. So Mays has kind of been around 2-2 in the UFC. So this was Abdelawab. This was his debut in the UFC.
First Egyptian-born fighter in the UFC.
And all 5 of his pro bouts were won by knockout. So that's quite something.
He only made his debut in October 2021. Wow.
Yeah. So,
well, in other parts of the world, they don't have the, all the athletic commission, stalling and stuff like that. They'll as long as you're healthy and don't have a major injury, they'll plug you into a fight. Mm-hmm. So it's possible that fighting in, I don't know if it's the Middle East specifically or Europe or wherever, it's like you get one knockout, do well, plug you back in, and
so Abdelawab ended up winning via split decision.
There were times where it got close to finishing, but yeah, he was definitely the man who dominated that fight.
Raphael Alves versus Drew Dober. Anything about these guys?
Dober is another one of those guys where I'm just like, you know what? He's like,
these guys have been around for a while.
Yeah.
30 plus fights for each fighter. So that's quite something.
Alves is a guy who I've been aware of, but for some reason or another, I just haven't seen him fight that much. He doesn't stick out to me.
This was looks like this was a body punch knockout.
Yeah, what happened was it was specifically, it looked like it probably hit either the diaphragm or the is it the pancreas? No, the liver. Mm-hmm. And if you hit either of those organs just right, it's going to happen like what would happen with Alves, where he just collapsed. Because your body can't function, you can't breathe.
Right.
Like I know what's I know what's like to get that area knocked out. It's just like you cannot breathe. It's like you literally cannot breathe.
So Alex Morano versus Matthew Simmonsberger. So Morano's a veteran, obviously. And
these are two guys that have kind of been there, but they've been on the undercard. It's like they're not really
not really making an impact.
Yeah, they're not. Some fighters just do that all the time. They're where it's like they've been in the UFC for years, but it's like maybe they might make the main card, but they don't stand out.
So this was a unanimous decision by Alex Morano, who I think was the veteran. So goes to him. Magomed Ankalaev versus Anthony Smith.
If I recall, this was on the pay-per-view. Well, actually, that first one might have been on the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that first one was on the pay-per-view.
Anthony Smith's been around for a while. 52
He
fights.
has. He challenged for the title. He fought John Jones.
52 fights is nothing to laugh at in an MMA career.
And that was one of those controversial fights where he'd actually said that if his corner ever threw in the towel, he would fire them. But when it's like, I'm sorry, when your guy is saying my teeth is falling out, I would never, if I were to go into fighting, I would never fire a coach because it's like the coach knows what's best for you, and if you're saying your teeth is falling out, then you need to end it.
Right.
I'm sure if the ref had heard that, then he would have. But yeah, that was another fight. Yeah,
it looks like this was the his ankle. Yeah, his ankle was broken or something like that.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah. Ankalaev is like part of the Dagestani wave. Yeah, Khabib started it, and there's just been this wave of Dagestani fighters who were cross-trained in wrestling and sambo, and are making waves primarily in the UFC, but I think some of them are also in Bellator and PFL.
Right. Okay, so we've got a men's, I think, is this flyweight?
Flyweight, yep. And this one was big because, I'm the Buffalo Wild Wings I watched it from is in Hanford. Alex Perez was born in Hanford.
Oh.
And he still fights out of Lemoore.
Oh.
So he was the hometown boy, so there were a lot of people aware of that, and they were like, yeah! And when he gets knocked out, they're like, boo!
Oh boy, that was not, wow. Minute 30 in the first round. Yeah, I guess
it was a submission. It was a solid one. He tapped out, so.
Oh, Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich.
Yep, Derek Lewis, the Black Beast.
So anything big going on in this fight, Matthew?
It's one of those things where Lewis is trying to, remain relevant, maybe try to get back to a title fight, and Pavlovich is an up and comer. I mean, just look at their records. Let's see, what's Pavlovich's? Go back up.
Pavlovich was 15-1.
3-1 in the UFC. So he in terms of the UFC, he hasn't been in here that long. It's probably his most high-profile fight. But
looks like Pavlovich did do a number
this
on.
This was one of those fights where I think Dan Miragliotta could probably have let it go a little bit longer. That the thing with some referees, some of them are criticized for being overly cautious. Others are criticized for, like Steve Mazzagatti, for not stepping in long enough, who have let fights go ridiculously long amounts of time.
I've seen some fights.
Dan Miragliotta is one of those refs who's overly cautious, who a lot of people says he does a lot of early stoppages. But to be fair, I could see where he thought Derek Lewis was done, because Pavlovich hit Lewis in such a way, and it looked like he was genuinely out, but then he bounced up right after he hit the ground. So if he was out, it was a flash knockout where he might have been out for like a second. But it's one of those hard calls where the guy looks like he's down and out for the count. You got to protect your fighter, and that's what Dan Miragliotta did. So I can't completely blame him for being overly cautious on this one. It's like it looked like Lewis was out, and he's been knocked out before, so I can't completely blame him. If I was in that same situation, I probably would have stopped the fight as well. It's one of those situations where it's better to be overly cautious than
So then
not
we had
cautious enough.
UFC flyweight title fight.
Interim title fight, because
Cejudo's still around.
Cejudo might be coming back in because he's back in the USADA testing pool. But no, it's why am I drawing a blank on the
champ
the title holder's name? Yeah, Davison Figueiredo, who was there, and he says that he'll be recovered enough. I forget what injury he got, but he got an injury in the last fight, which was against Morano, which I think was a fight of the night, and might have been a contender. When did that happen earlier this year? Or was that last year? I'm trying to remember.
So Brandon Moreno sticks to his guns and gets a TKO in round 3. So in the closing minute of the third round. So he is the interim champion, right?
Yeah, and we get to see Figueiredo versus Moreno 4.
Oh.
This is the first quadrilogy title fight in UFC history.
So have there been quadrilogies before?
I don't know if there's been a quadrilogy in the UFC before.
Well, just in general.
Definitely not for the title. There's been trilogies. There's never been a quadrilogy.
But outside of the UFC, have there been quadrilogies?
There's been like cross-promotional quadrilogies. Like Rampage and Silva fought 4 times. Twice in Pride, 1 in the UFC, and 1 in Bellator. So there's definitely been quadrilogies spanning multiple promotions, but there's never been a quadrilogy in the UFC. To my knowledge, I might be wrong.
And lastly, the women's bantamweight title fight, Juliana Pena, the champion, versus Amanda Nunes, the challenger. But Nunes coming in as the favorite. And she proved Vegas right.
And the women's featherweight champion.
Yep. So back to being a 2-time champion, correct?
2-division champion. Yep.
And she's probably the first fighter to do that twice now.
Yeah, she would be the only fighter to reclaim that mantle, because Connor didn't even defend his title. Cejudo vacated the flyweight title. Cormier vacated the
light heavyweight.
The light heavyweight title because he's it's how can I put this? It's not gonna be diplomatic. It's nothing against Cormier, but he likes to eat. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I think a lot of people like to eat.
And let's see who the last one. I'd like to say there's been 5 champs.
Huh.
Let's see. McGregor, in no particular order. McGregor, Nunes, Cormier, Cejudo. Who's number 5? There might not be a number 5. I'm trying to think. So yeah, she's the only person to reclaim that champ moniker.
So,
because everyone else, they claimed it, and essentially what they did was train one title for another. So
right. Okay, well, so that's UFC 277, and then Matthew, what do we have coming up for the next UFC event?
UFC on ESPN 40 next weekend, but the more important thing is the first round of the Professional Fighters League playoffs.
So let's see. Yeah, I think this is the next event.
Santos versus Hill. Yeah, it's just the UFC on ESPNs are essentially fight nights under another name. So yeah, you have the up and comer. Oh, this is the Ultimate Fighter finale.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah, because that's another thing that was relevant with the Pena versus Nunes fight was that they were coaches on the Ultimate Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Oh, and of note is Pena's team is guaranteed a one of the winners of the Ultimate Fighter this year. Because I think it's both of her heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the women, it's one team Pena, one team Nunes.
Okay. And then obviously this is what you were mentioning, the PFL playoffs.
Yep. Let's see. Where is August? August 5th. That's going to be the first one. The lightweight and light heavyweights in the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden.
All right. Well, that'll be some interesting events that are going to happen. So I'm sure you're going to fill us in a lot more when we come back next week for that, right?
Yeah, which just like this week, we might have to do it a little delayed, considering I'll be in Vegas this weekend.
Well, good for you. All right, Matthew. Well, that concludes our UFC talk for today. So let's get right into sumo then. See how things went. So I think overall, and there was just so we had a surprise winner, first-time winner Ichinojo, who was called by some the gentle giant in sumo, and so there was a lot that happened. I think we might have talked about the first day action going on when we made our last. When we made our last episode, but I think
you should mention all the chaos that happened.
Yes, I am going to get into the chaos, but basically Ichinojo, who is from Mongolia, and he's been in the top division of sumo for quite some time, finally got his first Makuuchi top division Yusho. Now, yes,
Mongolians are just reigning right now, aren't they?
Well, I mean, kind of in recent years, there was actually, I think, 2020, the Japanese actually won more titles. And actually, right now, I think it's tied because Terunofuji has a Yusho this year. Ichinojo has won a Yusho. You had Wakataka Kage and Mitake Umi both win Yusho. So it's 2-2 now for Japan versus Mongolia in terms of that. Now,
I still, for all intents and purposes, consider this the era of the Mongolians.
well, yes, I mean, you could say so. I mean, Terunofuji.
Because you had Asashoryu, then you had Hakuho, now you've got Terunofuji.
Well, and you can't forget Haramafuji and Kakuryu were also Mongolian Yokozuna. And they actually held their own pretty well, too. Haramafuji won 9 Yusho. Kakuryu won 6. So it's not like, they were not... they weren't competitive. I mean, obviously, if you have to,
competent.
No, it's competitive because, they had to deal with Hakuho. They were the guys that had to kind of deal with Hakuho every now and then.
To me, it's just so amazing how Hakuho outlasted how many Yokozuna?
He outlasted Haramafuji, Kakuryu, and Kiseno Sato. So he outlasted him.
Yeah, so and they all reached after he made it.
Right, and they all retired before he did.
Yeah, so the fact that he went as long as he did is just...
Oh, there's never going to be another one like Hakuho. No doubt in my mind. There's never going to be another one as dominant and as long tenure. As long lasting. I mean, he really pulled out a lot of stops in terms of being able to last as long as he did.
And he went out on top. His last Yusho was a Zensho.
Yes, it was. I think that even carries more testament to, him being the GOAT of sumo. So anyway, just to get back into the Nagoya tournament, so Ichinojo and Terunofuji were both 11-3 going into the last day. So that's at least on the competitive side of the chaos that was going on, because right now there is no real dominant wrestler. You do have Terunofuji, who is the Yokozuna, but he is injury prone because of, what happened early on in his career. Now, obviously, the comeback from him, having fallen down to the 5th division and then coming back, reclaiming his Ozeki rank, but then on top of that, getting promoted to Yokozuna, that alone is a testament in and of itself. But he is the dominant wrestler right now, but there's no one else that's really dominant. You've got all the Ozeki right now are inconsistent. Shodai, Takakesho, and Mitake Umi, they're all inconsistent. They're all injury prone.
I seriously doubt, unless Terunofuji retires, I seriously doubt any of the Ozeki right now are going to be Yokozuna. I think whoever's going to be the next Yokozuna is someone
other than the
coming up.
So Takakesho is considered to be the one closest to possibly getting there, but him being a one-trick pony doesn't really help because he's only got the Oshi and Tsuki. He does a try to get under and push the guy away type of thing.
Yeah, you need to have a more diverse moveset.
Well, it really helps. Really does help that. So, anyway, it was a bit chaotic because on day 13, Ichinojo, Terunofuji, they were 11-2. Takakesho was 10-3. You go into day 14, all 3 of them lose. So that really created a bunch of chaos going on into there. So then we had a chance of looking at a playoff. And a possible 3-way playoff, which hadn't happened since who knows when. I think the 90s. So there hadn't been a 3-way playoff in the top division in quite a while, obviously. But it was Ichinojo who managed to keep the trickster Ura away from trying to pull any tricks. And he forced him out. on a Yori Taoshi. But then it was the last match, which was going to determine, were we going to go into a playoff, or were we going to have Ichinojo claiming his Yusho? So Ichinojo was sitting in the back. He's at 12-3. He's waiting to see. So he had essentially eliminated Takakeisho from the playoff. So Terunofuji had to win in order to get into the playoff. But Terunofuji got caught up in Takakeisho's game, which I thought was a bit, unusual. They've got I have to say, this is probably my favorite rivalry is the Terunofuji Takakeisho, because there's been a lot of whenever they fought, there's been Yusho implications. But somehow Takakeisho was able to get the better of Terunofuji this time, and settled for the Jun Yusho, and it went Ichinojo's way. Now, I'm gonna throw this one out because there's a YouTuber, and he's bigger than us, and
Well, most people are bigger than us right now. Most people are bigger than my channel, and I've got like 166 followers.
But I gotta call him out for this, and because he lives in Japan, but he I don't know what work he does, but he does go out. He does get he gets footage from inside the arenas, and he gets a lot of intimate close-ups, and then he talks to whenever he has the chance, he talks to the wrestlers. Sometimes, though, I don't like his style of throwing out either conspiracy theories or trying to throw a narrative out there that people have a way of thinking when they weren't. So, and his name is Chris Gold, or Chris Sumo, as he's called. I thought it was disingenuous of him to suggest that the crowd did not want to see a playoff. And it almost seemed to me like he was thinking that maybe Terunofuji threw that match for his friend Ichinojo, because apparently they went to high school together in Japan, and they came on the same airplane when, they came from Mongolia. So I gotta, throw that at him, be like, what are you doing? The fans want to see a playoff. What are you talking about? So
this guy sounds like he likes to drum up drama for the sake of let's face it, for the sake of the views.
Yeah. And you know what? That's his style. And he's got a lot of subscribers. I'm not going to take that away from him. I just think it's disingenuous to suggest that the fans wanted to go home early and they did not want to see a playoff. So that's my gripe on that whole spiel. Anyway,
the fans always want to see a playoff. The fans want to see the playoff. They'll go home after the Meiji Cup is given out. They'll go home out once how many cups do they get?
They hand out a lot. Well, you got the Emperor's Cup, you've got the Prime Minister's Cup, and then you got all these other things that are handed out.
Like, it's probably after the Prime Minister's Cup. They'll leave after the Prime Minister's Cup. It's like they don't want to stick around for the 20 different cups after that. That's when they'll leave.
So, but anyway, so I think congratulations to Ichinojo for finally getting that Yusho. It took him 48 tournaments, 48 basho to finally get that cup, and that put him on the 9th slowest pace to get a Yusho in the top.
At least he got a Yusho. Let's face it, most of the what's it called? Most of the Rikishi and Makuuchi don't win a Yusho. Well, that is an exclusive club.
He came close on a couple of occasions. Like in his Makuuchi debut, he went 13-2 and he almost won it. But who stayed ahead of him? One on the pace? Hakuho, right? So Hakuho wins the Yusho, and Ichinojo had that chance. And then there was a basho a few years back. Ichinojo finished 14-1. He finished 14-1. But who stayed one ahead of him and won with a 15-0? Hakuho. So Hakuho thwarted Ichinojo on a couple of occasions, but this time, and Ichinojo, I mean, he defeated Teruno Fuji. He defeated all three of the Ozeki, and he defeated all the Sanyaku too. And Ichinojo has struggled with health problems at the times. He's 220 some odd kilos, so he's a big dude. 500 over 500 pounds, and he's the fifth Rikishi.
Roll the thing down just to show the.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big guy, and he's the fifth Rikishi over 200 kilos to win the Makuuchi Yusho. Onokuni, who was he was the heaviest Yokozuna to date, I think, until Akebono took that.
Akebono set so many records.
Yeah, Akebono set some records, and he was the heaviest Yokozuna, I think. And then you got Musashi Maru, who was also, he got big. And then obviously Konishiki.
Konishiki is the record holder.
Is the heaviest Rikishi to win a Yusho, obviously.
Wasn't he the heaviest when we went over there? Because he was a little bit light.
So
than he was not at his peak weight when he won the basho.
Right. His peak weight was during his twilight years of his career. He was a lot more agile, a lot more movable as an Ozeki when he was a little bit lighter than he was, because he was like 285 kilos when we were seeing him.
I forgot, was he about to fall to Jurio when he retired?
Yes, he was.
Okay, so he was able to maintain his Makuuchi status by retiring when he did.
Right. So Ichinojo, another guy in there. So good for him to finally get that.
How old is Ichinojo?
Ichinojo, I think, is in his late 20s, or I think he just turned 30. But
what's the likelihood that he could?
Well, actually, he gave a post basho interview. He said he wants to gun for Ozeki again. He's been considered a guy who could make it, but it's just he's inconsistent when he gets into the Sanyaku ranks. He just can't get that momentum going for making that ultimate drive. So hey, maybe this Yusho lights up a fire in him to finally do that.
Something that I think I've mentioned, I forgot. Who's Asha Shoryu's nephew?
Ho Shoryu.
I still can't believe that in looking everywhere online, I couldn't find out which brother of Asa Shoryu's he's the son of.
Yeah, because I think Asa Shoryu has quite a few brothers.
Yeah, and he's got two high-profile ones that went into MMA and pro wrestling. So you would think that they'd be able to list it.
Well, maybe Ho Shoryu's dad wasn't he wasn't out there like his other uncles.
It's possible that he came straight from Mongolia and did it because of Asa Shoryu.
Oh yeah, definitely. He wanted Ho Shoryu wanted to get in there because of Uncle Asa Shoryu. So.
Well, and he's definitely a lot more respectful.
Oh yeah.
But then again, well, was Asa Shoryu causing problems before he hit Yokozuna, or did Yokozuna it seemed
to me that once he got into Yokozuna, I mean, well, he was already, he was a pretty aggressive guy, but that's what got him there. I mean, personally, I liked watching Asashoryu. He was a very talented wrestler.
Oh, I agree. He was very talented,
and he was very strong. He would give off Chiyono Fuji vibes. I mean, I remember one time he got behind. He was able to, during the match, he was in a belt battle with someone, and then he somehow got behind the guy, and then he just picked him up and threw him to the ground. And I think the move was called an Okuri Tsuri Otoshi or something like that. He would use some rare moves, even as a Yokozuna. Yokozuna, I think the stereotype is typically they'll use a lot of belt stuff. So it's typically like Yorikiri or Uate, Uate or Shtate, a Nage throw move and stuff like that. But he would get some rare ones out there.
So he would do stuff that you'd probably see more like in freestyle or Greco.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I think if his
well, wasn't he a talented Mongolian sumo?
I don't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Like that's definitely where he cut his teeth. That's where he got the skills.
Right. I think so. It's been a while since I've looked up Asashoryu. In fact, let me look. I got a window open. Let's see. Asashoryu. I think it just his conduct, and it was conduct both on and off the dojo. I think if
it's like we said, if he hadn't retired when he did, it's possible Hakuho
would not have gotten a 45 Yusho. Yes, that is easily the consensus, I think, with a lot of people.
Because they would have been going back and forth, because Hakuho was up and coming towards the end of Asashoryu.
And you're right. Asashoryu does have a Mongolian wrestling pedigree. And he was so he did Mongolian wrestling, and he also did judo.
Oh, that probably helped as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're a judoka, you've got skills that
right.
The average sumo rikishi does not.
But I think Hoshoryu, I think one of the problems he was having early on is that he was a little bit too light, so he did put on a little weight. So he's been more successful. I mean, he's had 3 consecutive Kachikoshi tournaments since being at Komosubi. So that's nothing to scorn, really. I mean, to be able to, because the Komosubi and the Sekiwake normally aren't going to do well. And if you're doing good in the Sanyaku, that means that you're trending upwards towards getting to Ozeki. So the fact that he was able to do that the fact that he's been able to, hold 3 consecutive Hachikoshi in Komosubi, I think that will probably hold well for him in the future too. I think so. Where has he? So actually, yeah, he's had winning scores all of this year. So, I like to, Hoshoryu is fun to watch too, and he kind of tries to give off that
Asashoryu vibe.
The Asashoryu vibe, but like you said, he's a little bit more toned down on the attitude that his uncle had.
Well, if he's smart, he would know that, okay, in order to succeed, this is what I need to do. My Uncle Asashoryu had a bit of an attitude. I need to tone that down. I need to be more respectful. If I want to do this and define myself on my own merits, I need to distance myself from that.
Right. So, with that being said, now
the chaos I wanted to bring up was the fact that
the real chaos of this basho.
Yeah.
So, for the first time since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Sumo had positive test results of COVID-19 wrestlers mid basho. Up until now, they had not had any mid basho positive test results. It normally would be testing would happen before the basho, and if those positive test results came up, usually they would have the whole heya sit out, and normally those ranks have been protected because it was something that was not of their own doing, nothing because of injury. So what ended up happening this time? So they had one heya all of a sudden had a positive test result. Oh, we're gonna withdraw the whole heya from the basho, and then after that, it's a snowball effect, and you had what ended up happening is you had 100 up to 170 wrestlers out of the 600 and some odd wrestlers. So close to a third of the wrestlers end up having to withdraw. Some of them are pulled, at the beginning of the first week. Some of them are pulled right up to day 15. And what they had declared in the past was that if there was an infection or a positive result mid basho, they would cancel the tournament. But obviously they didn't do that, and they kept going. And so one of the criticisms I know that's always thrown out there of the JSA is that they're inconsistent about rulings and stuff. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do this time around, because I think one of the things that should have happened, it's really unfair to have a whole heya have to sit out if you've got one positive test, especially if those people who were in close contact ended up testing negative on their results. And that's why I want to bring up this another person, because, so I don't know if you know Matthew Tamawashi. He's the current Iron Man of Sumo. Up until day 13 of this basho, he had not missed a match in his entire career. So 1,448 matches, which puts him well in, I think, in the top 5 of consecutive matches wrestled. That was interrupted, not because of injury, but because of this stupid, thing that they had going on. And I was ready to really, I was ready to make a post basho like rant against GSA, until apparently they are saying that they are going to allow the match streak of Tomoashi continue. And there's a couple other guys that have never missed matches in their careers too, and the same thing happened to them. I think there was a wrestler that had like 1,000+ matches going, so he'll be allowed to continue his streak as well. So it looks like it says 158 wrestlers ended up withdrawing, including 13 Sekitori. But I think it was a crying shame that this was on day 13. So I think the total ended up being 170. So now the next,
but of course, we need to keep in mind that most of the Rikishi affected were not in Juryo or Makuuchi.
Right, they're all down in the lower ranks.
Which, to be fair, they've got, because of how bloated those ranks are, a few guys missing wouldn't have affected them, the basho, in those divisions in the long
Here's
scale.
the other gripe I have against them for just trying to finish it out, especially making people withdraw. There were a few people in the Yusho race that, because there was an infection at their heya, were forced to withdraw. So the Yusho race could have gone in a completely different path if those people weren't forced to withdraw from the tournament. So I'm hoping that they can come up with a solution to these, what happens here going forward. Because especially, when you have someone like Tamawashi who's put in a lot of work and he's been able to stay relatively healthy and injury-free, I think it's really unfair to have something like that. Obviously I'm happy that they're going to allow this to continue, but, there'll be people who say that, well, there needs to be an asterisk next to the record because he technically did not compete in some matches. So that's the gripe I have in relation to that.
Well, it's like anything, unfortunately, is that when you've got a bureaucracy, let's face it, the JSW is a bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a bureaucracy like that, there's just gonna be stuff that just would not normally make sense, and that other people would not make the decisions on. But especially when you're dealing with sumo, who are these it's like they're these old school guys. They have this old school mentality of, we need to do it a specific way, tradition, blah 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 blah. Stuff is gonna happen that just is not that not everyone is kosher with. So yeah, that's just how things are gonna go.
So yeah, so now the debacle that's gonna ensue is the fact that a lot of these guys ended up getting pulled mid-tournaments. Now, in the past, the ranks have been protected. What are you going to do about these guys who ended up competing? And for some of them, they were competing and they already had losing records before they had to withdraw. Some of them had winning records. Now, I'm thinking, for the guys who had the winning records, I think they deserve to be promoted. They should not be frozen in those ranks. On the other side of the guys who ended up having losing records before they were withdrawn, I think there needs to be some kind of compromise to the fact that, hey, they competed and they went out and they got losing records. So they probably should drop, just not to the extent of, if you had, like, for example, there was a guy who I think was like 2-9 before he withdrew. He obviously should not have a record that's equivalent to 2-13. So he probably, in my mind, he probably should have a record that's equivalent to like either 5-10 or 6-9. Because you don't know what his final record would have been.
Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see what the decisions are on the Banzuke. Unfortunately,
Well, that's why a lot of people on Sumo Forum, they are not looking forward to playing Guess the Banzuke, which is a real game. So I encourage all our viewers to go. If you want to really try to test your predictions. Play Guess the Banzuke.
The Sumo Kyokai is gonna have to make a decision on how to do things, with the people, taking into consideration the people who finished the basho and the people who were doing well, the people who weren't doing well. They're going to have to make a decision because there's only so much room in the higher ranks.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make a decision.
Yeah, you do.
It's like things may have been maintained in the past, but it's like, you know what? It's like you made decisions, a lot of controversial decisions based off of stuff you did with this basho. So yeah, so they have to deal with those consequences. They dug their grave.
Yeah. So anyway, who knows? Who knows? But we'll see. Anyway, so that concludes that. And then I just want to talk about my experience. So there is a. I need a. So anyway, I saw that the return of the U.S. Open for sumo is coming, and it'll be at the Long Beach State. So I'm gonna try and compete in it. And I reached out to someone at USA Sumo, so I was allowed to go to a practice this last Sunday, and Yama, who is a former Makuuchi wrestler, was there too, and so I got to speak Japanese with him and stuff. So it was a really cool experience, and then getting to just get onto this dojo and wrestle with some people was really fun. I'm quite a bit sore from the experience, but so that's why it's a matter of getting back into shape and stuff. So I'm really excited to see what I could possibly do out at this U.S. Open, the Sumo U.S. Open.
You've made me genuinely curious, and I'm not going to be able to do it this year, but, make me wonder, could I maybe try to do it in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially, if it's staying in SoCal, because they have so that's
my understanding was it's traditionally always been in Long Beach. I have known about the U.S. Open before. If you're involved in combat sports in Southern California, about most of what happens in Southern California.
Yeah.
So I knew about the U.S. Sumo Open. It's always been at the Long Beach Pyramid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I doubt they're going to move it, because here's another thing. Most people who do sumo are on the West Coast.
Right. Well, recently I've heard about there's a Dallas club. So there is that. But anyway, so yeah, it was really fun. I got to meet, new people and stuff like that. So, and, they'll be holding practices again in a few weeks. So I'm wanting to get back into that again. And I think it'll be nice because I'll get to do that. And then right after that, we'll get into the college wrestling season. So, back to helping volunteering and coaching and things like that. So a lot of stuff coming up. And I want to see how I'll do. I think if I can get one win at the U.S. Open for sumo, I'll be happy. And I'll have to see about if I'm gonna end up in the light heavyweight or the middleweight. Because the middleweight is 185 pounds. I don't think that with all the time management and stuff going on and work, I don't think it's going to be feasible to get down there this year for the middleweight. So, I think I'll probably just go light heavyweight. But if you compete, in the one of the weight classes, then you can also do the open weight. So I'll have a couple of opportunities to see how things go. I think it'll be fun.
Something interesting. I actually looked up the Sumo World Championships, and the nation that has the most amateur championships outside of Japan is actually Russia.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Mongolia is not far behind either.
So I've heard recently that I guess, well, because I was listening to conversation that was going on. I guess Egypt has been up and coming lately, which is
I saw them up there as well.
Yeah, they've been up and coming apparently, so that's something.
Well, didn't Egypt have a top a guy who made it in the Makuuchi a while back?
Yeah, he did. Osana Arashi.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there for a while. And then I remember, I think he tried to do MMA.
Yeah, he did. He had that fight with Bob Sapp.
And then I think it really went poorly.
Well, I don't know if he fought after that fight.
Because he got signed to Ryzen. And then I think Ryzen cut him because of how bad he did. And then the guy who runs Ryzen, the president, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to sign any more sumo wrestlers. I actually read about that. So,
didn't he sign Baruto?
Yeah, he did sign Baruto. Baruto, I think, fought once.
Yep. Well, I don't know if he fought solely in Ryzen, but he actually had a winning record.
Yeah.
Which is atypical for sumo rikishi. Sumo rikishi typically don't do well in MMA because it just doesn't translate.
Well, yeah, because sumo is a lot of. It's not a cardio type sport. It's very
well, that and the emphasis isn't on fighting.
Right.
The emphasis isn't on trying to beat each other up. The emphasis is trying to force each other out of a ring. That's very different from an MMA fight where your goal is to punch him into submission or knock him out or
right.
Submit him.
Yeah. So I'll let you know how things are going, updates on this, and
of note, West Hills is pretty close to establishing an actual club. So, I'm going to look at hitting the mat as well.
Yep. I found a club too, so I'm trying to get back into it. And I think, yeah, it's a matter of,
Oh, you found an actual club?
Yeah, nearby? I did.
Yep. Well, weren't you wrestling with one of the Ariello brothers?
Yeah, Jason. I've been going to his practices.
Oh, but did you find an actual more established club?
No, just been going to him.
Okay.
All right, so Matthew, let's wrap this one up with our final topic of the day. One Piece is back. One Piece is back in circulation. Oda has graced us with his presence. And I think the last time, before he went on break, he gave us Luffy's bounty, which went up to 3 billion, I think. And
his elevation to a...
Law and Kid also are 3 billion. But yeah, the big thing was that
Luffy is now an Emperor of the Sea.
He is a Yonko, and then the other one was, Buggy is also an Emperor of the Sea. So,
which, as we talked about, that's solely about influence. Buggy was able to build this reputation and empire, and to the point where he was able to be considered an emperor, whereas Luffy, it's a combination of things, partially because of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, but Luffy's actually earned it.
Right. Like all the things that he's done over the course of the series. So, real quick, we'll get into chapter 1054, which was last week, and then chapter 1055, which was this week. So, I think the big confrontation that we've been seeing in both these chapters is the fact that Admiral Rokugyu, aka Green Bull, has come to Wano and
took out the remnants of the
of the Beast Pirates. But then we got the samurai of Wano are trying to stand up to him because they are determined to not let Luffy get captured by Rokugyu. So,
but also the fact that they felt they need, in order to prove
themselves.
Momonosuke in particular, they needed to prove themselves that they would be able to protect the country by themselves.
Right. So you've got that, and during that, one of the things that we found was that I think, he's got the thing called the Mori Mori no Mi. So he is a Logia user, and I think there was what people thought was a joke was the fact that he, when he had seen Fujitora the one time, and he said that he hadn't eaten in 3 years. Well, the reason why is because he can suck the nutrients out of either things or people, which seems kind of similar to Charlotte Smoothie and her being able to suck the juices out of people, so that she can like have a drink or something like that. So kind of a weird one. But one thing we did notice was that Rokugyu is playing into Oda's MO of portraying the admirals in One Piece, is that he is modeled after a famous, old school Japanese actor, or based on his, based on a character that actor might have played. And so in the case of Rokugyu, and so Rokugyu's actual name is Aramaki, and I think that is actually connected to his inspiration. So if I'm looking at it, so I'm looking at the One Piece Wikipedia right now, and Rokugyu is based on the late Japanese actor Yoshio Harada, and Harada portrayed a character named Aramaki in the film Ronin Gai, which also starred Kunie Tanaka and Shintaro Katsu, on whom the admirals Kizaru and Fujitora are also based on. So, again, got to give it to Oda, how he likes to, that's the thing that's really interesting about Oda, is how he throws real world influences into the series. I think that's one of the things I find endearing about One Piece, is how, he's able to kind of throw these little tidbits in there from time to time.
And it makes it more relatable.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. One of the things also is we were finding is that, so in chapter 1054, the red-haired pirates have come
Parked
to Wano.
outside Wano.
And so it's like, well, what's going to happen in chapter 1055, which we'll get to in a moment. But I think the big thing that that brought out a lot of answers was the fate of Sabo after he had been at the Reverie. And we're finding that, so the newspapers were, the story that the newspapers were running, which had shocked a lot of people, especially the Revolutionary Army. They're trying to, if you remember, Dragon was trying to tell all his people to call, the other revolutionaries that were based around the world to confirm to confirm the reports that I think it's called the World Economic Journal or whatever, from the bird guy,
Big
the
News
bird
Morgan.
guy running it. And so what has happened, apparently, the newspapers are running with that Sabo assassinated Nefertari Cobra.
I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to make a prediction. I think this is a false flag attack. The world Cobra was always a problem. He was sympathetic to he was secretly sympathetic to Luffy. He was always a benevolent leader. It's like he has Sabo had no reason to assassinate him. It may look like it, but he had no reason to assassinate him. I think this is a false flag attack. World government sent a CP agent in secret and posed as a revolutionary and killed Cobra. I think this is a false flag attack.
Another thing about that is, you know, the Gorose, you know, who are they
The
are,
leaders of the world government.
well, not only are they the leaders of the world government, but they're also celestial dragons. And Cobra had asked for an audience with them because he wanted to know things about the Void Century, or he had some questions. And so it would seem like if Cobra truly is dead, that he dug a little too deep into the rabbit hole for the.
Yeah, for all we know, one of the guys in that meeting basically pulled out a weapon and said, "You're
Yeah.
sorry, you got to be offed."
Right. So the Gorose, you know, were obviously, I mean, they, if like you said, if you're correct that it was a false flag operation, then it definitely came from the Gorose, who are technically the supreme authority in the One Piece world. But, you know, so what's going to happen? And then the other thing is that Vivi has disappeared. So what's going to become of that? And could it be that Sabo either, well, kidnapped her, but maybe saved her from getting assassinated herself?
Yeah, I think so here's what probably happened. Like I said, I think it was a false flag attack. I think that that the world government had Cobra assassinated and then claimed that it was Sabo. But then one thing to remember, Im was looking at the posters,
right,
of, what was it, Blackbeard,
Vivi. I think he had Shirahoshi in there too.
Yeah, he did.
And then Luffy.
So I'm pretty sure he wanted, just from the way that they put it, he probably ordered that BB got offed. Right. But in order to do that, they needed to do other things as well. So they probably were going to try to kill both Cobra and Vivi and claim that it was an assassination by the Revolutionary Army. But
try to turn the tides.
Right, but things went south. The revolutionaries saved Vivi, knowing that, Sabo especially, because he's like, she's aligned with, my sworn brother, so I need to save her.
Right. So, but here's kind of the ironic thing, that possibly backfired on the world government if they were trying to turn public opinion against Sabo and the Revolutionary Army, is you can see in some of these panels in the chapter that they're celebrating Sabo, and he's almost as famous as Luffy because of the actions he took, and that's probably because some of these countries have been liberated by the Revolutionary Army. And did Sabo have a hate for all the for all the 20 families? Because they probably know that the Nefertari family was one of the 20 families, but they're the only one to not go to Marie Joie, to become celestial dragons. So they are considered lower kin by the Celestials. But, so it's kind of interesting. What is the perspective of Sabo versus the perspective of, what other people think about it?
Well, another thing that was revealed was that the whole point of the revolutionaries in Marie Joie was to save Bartholomew Kuma, which they did.
Right. So now the interesting thing is, so he's been completely, transformed. He's a cyborg under the control of the world government. So how will they be able to get through to him, if at all?
Yeah, like how did they get him away?
Because they certainly don't have Vegapunk, because Vegapunk is protected by the world government and the Marines. It's not like, because my thought is that Vegapunk is probably the only one who holds the key to, if Bartholomew Kuma's condition is reversible, only Vegapunk would have the key to unlocking, the reversal process, if it's possible. That would be my opinion on that. So, and then obviously Shanks at the end of 1054 decides it's time for him to go after the One Piece. Because he's telling Ben Beckman that. So
it would make sense considering that Ben Beckman is his
right-hand man. Exactly.
And they've probably spent the most time together.
So if we get into chapter 1055, so the battle between the Akazaya and Momonosuke is, them fighting Green Bull is continuing, and Green Bull does seem to have the upper hand with his, devil fruit powers. And but then on the flip side of the conversations that are going on, Kozuki Sukiyaki, who had thought to have been dead, he came up in the 1053 and he's been talking with Robin and stuff, but now they're going deeper into Wano and they're taking Law with them too. So Law's finding out more about, the history of what's been going on. And as it turns out, there is an older Wano. The Wano of right now is a newer Wano, and the Wano of old is from 800 years ago, which means that this thing probably existed. This Wano that's underwater would have existed during the Void Century. And Sukiyaki cryptically points out that to tear down the walls of Wano, or opening up the country, which is what Oden was trying to do, would release Pluton. And as Matthew, I think you can probably explain it better than I can about, the significance of Pluton, right?
Well, yeah, Pluton is one of the three ancient weapons, and we know two of the three. One of them is Pluton. It's this ancient, I think they call it a ship,
right?
But
Sure.
the shipwrights of what was the galley company?
Galila, yeah.
Yeah, those shipwrights were passed down the blueprints to Pluton. And Frankie was the last one to have gotten it from who was Roger's shipwright?
Iceberg.
Yeah, from Iceberg, and he torched those.
Right.
But he might still have those, being that he's a cyborg. He might have actually copied those in his head.
Right.
But so there's that one. Then Poseidon is the power of a mermaid to control the
I think the Sea Kings.
The Sea Kings, and the current incarnation of Poseidon is Shirahoshi. And then you've got Neptune.
Well, no, Uranus is the.
It was Uranus. I'm getting my my planet.
Neptune is the king of the fish.
Yeah. Then you've got Uranus, which is an unknown, which I still think was located on God Valley.
Anyway, but yeah,
either that or it might be the One Piece.
Right. But it's confirmed that Pluton is in Wano, which is why Kaido had been sitting there for, the past 20 some odd years, because he wanted to get Pluton. But because he didn't have, all of the access, he could not find it. But so the fact of the matter is that there's a buried city, and that the current Wano, somehow the walls were built up so that's why Wano, as we know it, is above the ocean, in this, unusual type of landscape and all that. So where do they go from there? And I think, and then Robin has found the I think the red poneglyph.
The road
poneglyph that she needs. So this,
3 down, 1 to go.
Interesting times ahead.
We need to find which one is where the last one is.
Yeah, where the last one is. Now, what's not to say that Blackbeard's not in control of it?
Probably.
I mean, because you had, now, one thing, this is kind of off topic, but I'm wondering what's going to happen with the Charlotte Pirates, or the Big Mom Pirates, now that Big Mom has been taken out. It's going to be an interesting ride.
Well, let's see. They're still in charge of what?
Totoland.
Yeah, they're still in charge of Totoland, so I guess right now they kind of function similar to how the Whitebeard pirates without Whitebeard function, which is that, they're just holding on to territory, though. And like I said, the only one that they have a confirmed hold on is Totoland.
So,
they are still an entity. It's just a matter of how
powerful they are.
Yeah.
So, to close out the chapter, it looks like Momonosuke ends up unlocking some powers of his own thanks to his Dragon Devil Fruit. And one of the things he does is the, in English, they're calling it the Bolo Breath, but it's basically that big fireball that Kaido unleashed, when he took out that castle at one time. But Momonosuke is able to use it too when he's fighting Green Bull. Although Green Bull still manages to, hold his own, and he sprouts up thanks to, not being taken out entirely. So he's ready to, finish off Momonosuke in the Akazaya 9. But, Matthew, what does he feel coming from the ocean?
He feels Conqueror's hockey.
And it's not a normal Conqueror's hockey, right?
Nope.
And the fact that he can feel it from so far away,
like who knows how many miles,
right? How many miles away? And so who is it? It's red-haired Shanks. And so red-haired Shanks, like he always does, somehow will interrupt history in the making to some extent. It's this weird thing about Shanks where he's able to influence history just by being in a certain place at a certain time, right?
Yep.
I mean, because if you think about it, because when he appeared at Marineford, the fact that he prevented Kobe from being killed by Akainu, and also Luffy from being killed off as well, that totally changed history. So, Shanks plays this really significant role here and there.
Oh,
and now,
speaking of Sakazuki, I think it was in chapter 1054, but Sakazuki was talking about all these things, and
right.
He's speaking with Kizaru.
Right.
And I think some people have pointed this out, but basically the only positive relationship we have seen with anybody that almost resembles friendship is with when it comes to Sakazuki is Kizaru.
Yeah.
That's the only person who he has a somewhat positive relationship with. He didn't want Green Bull going to Wano, and he disobeyed him, and he's,
and he's like, Fujitora's...
He's not on good terms with Fujitora right now, because Fujitora let Luffy get away, and then, called him out on his fragile honor.
So here's the thing I found. So Green Bull has given up trying to take out Luffy. So that means that, hey, we're going on a new journey. It also looks like...
Well, and it's funny because it's when, he could tell that he and Shanks were able to communicate, and he's like, I have no quarrel with you. Mm-hmm. And Shanks is like, leave and I'll turn it off.
Right. So that's how Green Bull gives up the fight there. Oh
yeah, also the fact that what people are referring to as the Monster Quartet were overseeing the whole thing.
Yeah. So now instead of it being the Monster Trio, it looks like now we are it's the Monster Quartet now, because Jinbei was about as ready to fight, with Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro. So I think it's now the Monster Quartet now. But I think one thing that does seem to be confirmed, not officially, but it does look like it's going to be confirmed that, Yamato, I think, looks like Yamato is going to be joining the crew. Since Momonosuke wants her to go out with Luffy. And so looks like this is going to be a mirror action of Oden joining the Roger Pirates. I'm still hopeful that Carrot will join as the lookout, because I think one of the things I've seen in these theory videos, what would go for Carrot is that I think rabbits have good eyesight. I think.
Yes, because they literally eat carrots all day.
Right. So yeah, that would be the case for at least Carrot to go out. And plus, she would be carrying on Pedro's will. And then I can understand now where Yamato, she would be carrying on Oden's will. And I guess, well, because Navi's a navigator, and, I guess Oden, because he kept his journal, so he was keeping logs. What would that position be specifically?
That would be the log keeper.
Right. I'll have to see what the translation. Let's see if there's a what Google's translation for log keeper is, and log keeper. Of course, it just translates to logu kipa. That's not necessarily logu. Okay, so obviously that's not what that means. Anyway, so it does look like Yamato is going to be joining, because Momonosuke is telling her to go out with, the Straw Hats, and she's free from her father, Kaido. So I think that's where we're at. But,
that does go into, Luffy's theme of freedom.
Right. Yeah. I think all in all, though, I think Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei, they were ready to go if worse came to worse. So it's not like they were going to be completely caught off guard. And they probably were, at least Sanji was ready to try and take out an admiral. So I don't think that Rokugyu would have given them too much trouble, it seems.
Yeah, the way that the admiral's powers work right now, I'd like it. It depends on who would be considered weaker, Kizaru or Rokugyu, but I would say the weakest of the three, as it stands right now, is probably Rokugyu.
Yeah.
Especially if he doesn't utilize well, you have to have hockey.
Well, yeah, he does have hockey, because all the to be an admiral, you have to have hockey.
Yeah, but in most cases, I think they probably have armament. From what I've seen, I don't think any of them have
Let's see if maybe. Let's see.
I haven't seen any evidence that any of them have anything more than armament. Maybe
So
observation.
he is confirmed to have Busoshoku and so armament and observation. So he does have two armament and observation.
Wait, Fujitora, because he functions off of.
Well, no, I'm looking at Rokugyu right now.
Oh. Well, Fujitora has to have observation because that's
he has
how it
both.
functions.
Because I think, well, yeah, he's got to have observation just because of his condition. And yeah, he does have both. But he was using armament during the Dressrosa. So yeah, he's all good with that. And I know we did see Kizaru using armament, and I mean he's got to have observation just because of his being able to detect people. So, but I don't think there are none of the in fact, who knows? Well, I don't even know what admirals would have Conquerors hockey.
From what I've seen, I don't think any of them have Conquerors.
Yeah, Haoshoku.
Well, we're not even sure that. Wait, do we know if Garp has Conquerors?
Okay, so I'm looking at the thing right now. So there is one confirmed admiral who had Haoshoku, and that was Sengoku. So he's actually still around, but he's no longer an admiral because he's a what is that, inspector general or something like that now.
Yeah.
But he's still a Marine, so but he's kind of an observer in the fight now. So, but everyone
like
else
Garp.
is. I'm sorry?
Kind of like Garp.
Right. Yeah, Garp's kind of sitting back too. He's a trainer now. But yeah, in the case of Sengoku, he's just he's kind of observing things, and he's the guy who kind of provides some some insight into the world of old. Yep. So yeah, that's our One Piece segment. Big stuff.
Did we talk about how with Kaido and Big Mom's being dropped, that all of the Rock's pirates have been dropped essentially?
Well, that's hard to say because they may or may not be out. Well, obviously, those three that went on to become the Yonko. But Golden Lion Shiki is still out there somewhere. And, a couple of the other names that were mentioned. We don't know what specifically happened to them all, but at least those three, yes, they've been defeated.
And one of them's confirmed dead.
Yes. But we haven't seen the last of the Rock's pirates. Not yet. And the name Rox D. Zebek really still carries a lot of weight.
Well, if we want to be technical about it, I mean, there's part of Rock's legacy still around with Blackbeard.
Uh-huh.
But right now, the legacy is essentially Roger. Because two of the three were directly from his crew, and one of them was inspired by his crew member, and him directly. So
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see when Oda actually brings Zebek out into the light. See how.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see one more flashback, and it's gonna be the Battle of God Valley.
At least major flashbacks. So now the question is, well, which island do they hit next? Also, kind of an interesting thing that
which I do admit, I might be wrong about Elbaf, but I personally don't think we'll see it.
So one interesting thing, because they got the new movie coming out, One Piece Red, and it's basically a Shanks central movie. Now, here's the interesting thing. So apparently, in the movie setting, Shanks does have a daughter. However, because it's a movie, she is supposedly considered non-canonical. But if you notice, now I was kind of interested about this because remember when Shanks was telling Green Bull, why are you so afraid of the future? And he was seeing these flashbacks with all these different people when they were younger. In the first panel, you saw Luffy after he had cut himself with the knife, and Shanks was trying to console him. And then you saw Momonosuke and Hiyori. And then I saw in the last panel on the left, there was this person, this figure that was kind of shadowed. And I'm thinking, obviously, that's kind of a hint from Oda about a specific figure, a certain character.
Yeah, but supposedly it's his daughter.
Right, supposedly, at least according to the One Piece wiki, that it's his daughter. Now, obviously the wiki, but the wiki though is saying that she's non-canonical. So, we'll see. We'll see if Golden Lion Shiki became canonical because of once Rocks D. Zebek and the Rocks Pirates came up, he became canonical. Although I think Chapter 0 already established him as a canonical character.
Yeah, what is not canonical is the movie that his interaction with the Straw Hats.
I think it was Strong World was the name of that.
His present interaction in Strong World is not canon.
Okay, well, Matthew, I think we'll go up and wrap up for tonight. So, episode 21 of the Samurai Brothers. And so, Matthew, where can our viewers see our podcast and other related content?
We are on our videos. Our video format is on YouTube and Rumble. Our audio format is on what?
And Odyssey. We just got up on Odyssey.
Okay, yeah, Rumble, YouTube, and Odyssey, and our audio format is on Acast, Spotify, Google, and Apple.
And Matthew runs his own Twitter. You can find him at Matthew Salzer.
Oh, yeah, we do have a Twitter.
And we also do have a Twitter, too, at the Samurai Bros. So make sure that you follow us on there. And so, yeah, that's always... So we're open to people. We do want to get some people on here, some guests. We want to interview them with like wrestling related stuff, or if there's maybe an MMA fighter that would like come out there. And we're also extending an invitation to Coach Alan Clinton from Servite High School. We want to get you on the program because we want to see how you brought up Servite to be, the contender that it is. So we'd love to have you on there. So again, open invitation to Coach Alan Clinton from Servite High School. And I think other things that are going on, Matthew, So Matthew does run MMA Freak, which is a publication site, MMA-freak.com. You can follow the Twitter at MMA Freakout. And also, I will be trying to start up some sumo-related things and also some wrestling-related content. So hope you'll be on the lookout for that. And also invite you to come on the Sumo Forum and join the discussions about sumo on there. You can find me at the user Wakatake. So invite you to come out for that too. So Matthew, as always, thank you for your insight.
Oh yeah. Also, I have my own YouTube channel, which is just Matthew Salzer.
Yep. So he does a lot of he'll do some product reviews and some other fun things to talk about too.
I will be posting the vlogs of our Hawaii trip over the next few weeks.
So as always, we thank you all for joining us and just listening to our conversations. We love talking about a variety of things, and we'll be hoping to see you next week. So until then, everyone, take care.